This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
And after a year of training as a medical technician, always at minimum wages and without job security. During job searches and on the job, I experienced discrimination against women, pervasive, sometimes subtle, often open. At times it was mixed with other forms of discrimination. I applied for a job as a switchboard operator at the New York Telephone Company. I never made it past the first interviewer. "We don't hire Jewish girls," she informed me. "Why?" "Their arms are too short to reach the switches." That was a new one. Jobs were offered in gendered listings, jobs for men, jobs for women. All required previous experience. If you did not have that, you could not get an interview. If you claimed it, you had to provide written references. If you admitted to being an immigrant, you were not considered fit for an interview. It took 4 months of such hopeless job searches for me to learn that lying was essential. I got my first paid job by lying about my ethnicity, my religion, and my experience, and by providing fake references. My employers were Jewish refugees from Vienna like myself, only they were rich, and I was poor. I was required to wear spike-heel shoes and stand on them 48 hours a week. Sitting down was not allowed, in order to provide an elegant and glamorous look to their Fifth Avenue store. With my feet painful and damaged for life, I learned that gender mattered. After a year of working for these employers, I reported them anonymously to the Department of Labor for paying below minimum wages to their factory workers, all of whom were Jewish refugees from Europe. Anonymous or not, I immediately got fired, without a reference. Thus, I learned about class the hard way, and I have never forgotten it. When I became an academic, it was natural for me to consider class and gender as categories of analysis in all my work. During 2 decades as a mother, housewife, writer, and community organizer, I gained much practical wisdom that would later influence my academic practice and thought. When I organized neighborhood women for child care centers and better public schools, I learned that I could accomplish nothing by myself. It took a neighborhood organization to get a stoplight in front of the public school. It took years of patient, small-scale organizational work before a corrupt and authoritarian school principal could be restrained from running his school like a private enclave, in which elementary school children were treated as recruits in an army boot camp. When, in the 1950s, I worked in support of United Nations activities in a neighborhood PTA, in which it was considered un-American to urge that, together with candy, donations to UNICEF be collected at Halloween, I learned that I needed to make the work of UNICEF concrete and comprehensible as a neighborhood welfare effort on a larger scale. Abstractions, moral principles, and high-sounding resolutions would not convince my working-class neighbors. In that period, with communist witch-hunting and the blacklisting of subversives a national pastime, it was still possible to win support for blacklisted individuals by inviting them to present their work, their music, their films at a house gathering. People might not be ready to fight the system of blacklisting, but they would respond to an individual in need. Also, the display of courage needed to organize such a gathering could make the invited guests question their own actions and, perhaps, serve as a model. The women who organized peace committees in Queens, New York, during the Korean War exercised similar courage, persistence, and vision. The vision was the firm conviction that small local organizing efforts would, in the long range, influence policy and lead to social change. In my decades as a historian, I was able to confirm that vision as an actual organizing principle for several generations of women reformers. When, living in an integrated neighborhood, I worked with black women in progressive women's organizations, fighting for housing and school integration and for racial justice, I learned to appreciate their effectiveness, their leadership, and their strength. I saw mothers who combined paid work and family obligations and yet found time for neighborhood activism. Their style and culture was different from that of their white neighbors, but their long-range commitment to lifelong activism was unquestioned, grounded